Hello there.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. This is a very special episode of the Volleyball Source podcast. My name, once again, is not Everett DeLorme. I'm Rob St. Clair from south of the border in Chicago. Everett is at work. I'm sure he will enjoy catching up on this later because we have a very special guest joining me from Poland, our Polish insider in the Volleyball Source Discord. He goes by Adanos in various places online, but it is great to see his face for once and refer to him as Paweł Adamczyk, as he is properly known. Paweł, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hello, nice to be here.
I love the Polska jersey. We've got a lot to get into. I know you just finished watching the Polish women win a game at the World Championship. I was surprised it even took that long for them to beat Korea, but good sign. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, yesterday was way tougher, and tomorrow it will be equally tough, I guess. But it's nice to win always.
Yeah, winning is nice. I wish I were more familiar with the feeling, but my United States ran into the Polish men twice at the World Championship and then went home, as we talked about quite a bit on the 9x9. If you're looking for women's World Championship coverage, we're doing that here on the same YouTube channel. We had a show last night. Our next show coming up on this Sunday after pool play is over. But the topic for the day is a very important one. We're going to dig into the Polish PlusLiga. So Paweł's been kind enough to jump on and help me talk about what I think it's fair to call the second best club league in the world. Last week, me and the great Tommy Blizzard jumped on to the show about the Italian Superliga, which is really good in detail. We went through all the teams and kind of made our picks on where teams are going to finish up, and we'll do something very similar here, Paweł and I, on this show. But there are some differences in the structure of the PlusLiga and the Italian league. Just the overall format of the regular season is the same. It's still a double round robin, except in the PlusLiga there are 16 teams instead of 12. So each team will play 15 matches against each other team twice, home and away. Paweł, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. This change to 16 team has been a bit controversial since a lot of players didn't like playing as many games as they did last season. So that was like over 50 for Jastrzebski and Zaksa. But in the end, well, there is nothing the players can do. It wasn't up to them. So the federation decided to expand the league. Firstly, they've added a Ukrainian team, and then they've decided that they want even numbers. So they gave a free spot in a way to a team from second division.
Right. Yeah. 16 teams is a lot, and 30 matches in the regular season alone is a lot. Plus, like you said, you have the top 3 or 4 teams playing CEV competition on top of that. So that is a lot of matches. But the federation has decided that that's the way it's going to go this season. So other than the lot of matches in the regular season, still the top 8 teams make the playoffs. That's the same thing as Italy. Pretty simple format from there on out. There will be a series. After the semifinals, there will be a series for the finals, and then there will also be a series for third place because the winner of that series will get a berth to the Champions League the following year. The last place team in the regular season will they be relegated directly, or will they play for relegation?
Champion of Pierwsza Liga, champion of Pierwsza Liga against last team of PlusLiga play this relegation series, and winner gets a spot.
Okay, so last year was a little bit weird with them adding. They had actually almost added 2 teams from the second division, ended up adding only 1. And the team that got last year actually stayed in the league. We'll talk about that in a second. And then the Polish Cup, like we talked about Italy, there's this mid-season tournament. But the Polish Cup, if I remember correctly, Paweł, is kind of cool because it includes both teams from the PlusLiga and the second division. Is that right?
Yeah, it used to be this way, but now it looks like they are about to change it again. And I think it will be like just top 8 from PlusLiga after first half of the season will compete. So more like Italian style of cup, because in previous years it was all 14 teams from PlusLiga and teams who like got past previous rounds from lower divisions.
And that is a lot and takes a long time, and they're already playing enough matches, so I guess I understand the change for that. The most important thing that we really got to point out about the PlusLiga is the rule on foreigners, because it is different from Italy's rule. Italy, you just have to have 3 Italians in your starting 7. In Poland, it's different than that in 2 key ways, and one is that one that I didn't know until Paweł told me earlier today. That's that. Well, the base rule is that you can only have, every team, a maximum of 3 foreign players on the court at a given time. But that is on the court of the 6 players on the court at a given time, not the 7 in kind of the main rotation. Is that correct, Paweł?
Exactly. So basically you can have 2 middles and libero. Since they are never, 3 of them never at the same time on court, you can have all 3 foreigners, and another one, which is something that Zaksa might do with Karyagin, and both middles plus libero, but that's for later.
Yeah, that is for later. So that's an important point. At any given time on court, there's 6 players on court. A maximum of three of them can be foreigners, and so you could potentially have both middle blockers and the libero be foreigners, because you'll never have a point, and then one other player maybe, because you'll never have all 3 of those, like both middles and libero, on the court at the same time in a normal rotation. So that is different from the Italian league, the way the on-court thing is defined. And the other thing is the definition of the word foreign, because I guess that kind of leads us into one of the first teams that there is to talk about. But foreign is usually pretty simple to define. It's normally a player from any country other than the native country of the league. But this year, like Paweł mentioned early on, the PlusLiga has gone international. The PlusLiga has added a Ukrainian team to the PlusLiga. So we've got the second place team from last year's Ukrainian league, Barcom-Kazhany Lviv. I don't know how exactly it's pronounced there or spelled in Polish, but it's known as Lviv when you say it in English. The city in Ukraine, in northwestern Ukraine, that's very close to the Polish border. They have been added to the PlusLiga this year. And we'll talk about their lineup in just a second, but foreigner, as it applies to Lviv, does not mean a non-Polish player. It means a non-Ukrainian player. So on court at all times for Lviv, they need 3 of their 6 on-court players to be Ukrainian at all times, where for the rest of the PlusLiga, for the other 15 teams that are from Poland, those minimum 3 players are going to have to be Polish.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's a good point to start that PlusLiga wanted to expand in past. And of course, Lviv or Lwów, that's how we say it in Polish, were supposed to be one of the teams that join. Second one was supposed to be Berlin, recycling volley, actually, but then COVID happened and Berlin was less interested in joining PlusLiga, while Ukrainian leagues was still interested. And with all stuff that is happening right now, right there, they will be based in Poland, and it will be way simpler for other teams to play with them, because they will be playing in Kraków, so that's like South Poland. It will be way easier for them, and I'm sure they will have a lot of fans, because there's a lot of Ukrainians around in Poland nowadays. So I think it's the best solution possible.
Okay, I didn't know that part. I knew Lviv was joining the league, but I didn't know that they were going to be based in Poland, in Krakow, for the entirety of the season. I mean, that makes sense if you could work it out to get them out of Ukrainian borders because of the war going on, but I think that's a great setup. It's a little bit weird to think about a Ukrainian team playing in the Polish league as basically a Polish team the entire year. But I agree. I think they're going to get a lot of support, and I'm happy that they get this opportunity to play a good league in relative safety, considering what the alternative is right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm also quite glad that we finally made the move, because it will make things easier if we still want to expand PlusLiga in future.
And yeah, it's very possible that the PlusLiga can expand in the future, but 16 teams this year is already the most. That's got to be the most ever in the history of the league, right?
Yeah, I think we had 16 teams in past for one season, but I might be wrong. It might have been 14.
16 is a lot. So let's talk about this Lviv team. They've got a lot of Ukrainians, obviously being a Ukrainian team. They have the coach of the Ukrainian national team, Ugas Krashdins, the Latvian guy who we got to know coaching the Ukraine at the World Championship a couple weeks ago. And they've got a roster full of pretty good Ukrainians. They've got Tupchi, Vasil Tupchi on the right side, the lefty who we saw at World Championship, and a couple decent foreigners. Tell me about this Yeni Pazar character, this Turkish guy, because you and some other Polish fans in the Discord were saying that he looks pretty good, and this Lviv team is looking better than a team that will likely get relegated. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, Yeni Pazar looked really good in preseason friendlies. They've played Berlin at Gołębie Memorial last week, and they finished third behind Zaksa and Zawiercie, but ahead of Berlin. And Yeni Pazar was one of their best players. He got MVP for third place game, so definitely looks a bit better than expected, at least so far. And when the team was announced as the new team in PlusLiga and it became official, most people expected they will be like really bad and they would be immediately relegated. And what happens then? Like whether they stay anyways, or they got relegated and play in second division, or they just quit. But so far, looking at their squad and looking how they performed in preseason friendlies, I would say they are not getting relegated.
And like we talked about on last week's show, talking about the Italian Superlega, the goal of any team who is new to a league, whether you get promoted from the second division or in this case, coming in from just across the border in Ukraine, your goal as a first team in the league first year in the league is to not get relegated. I think that's a pretty fair goal. And I don't know that much about this Lviv roster yet. I mean, they've got two more interesting foreigners in this Jonas Kvalin character from Norway and Julius Firkal of Slovakia, those two outside hitters. I don't know anything about either of those guys. But if it sounds like because of a pleasantly surprising preseason, they might not get relegated. And that would be a great sign, because it would be a shame to expand the PlusLiga over that Ukrainian border and then immediately relegate the first team that joins the league.
Yeah, it would be a great shame. And I think the biggest name on the roster, even though he's way past his prime, has to be Artem Smolyar, their middle, who used to play in Russian league and was really, really good. Of course, he's past his prime, but his experience and still he still has some quality. It can be very, very important for them.
Yeah, he's 37, born in 1985, but he's 2'9". That certainly helps, and a guy that has really been around elite level volleyball before to help this team, this new kind of group of guys, acclimate to a league of this level. So I'm excited about this Lviv team. I definitely hope for their sake it would be a great storyline if they were to not get relegated and stay in the league, but I don't really know much about them yet, so I'm excited to check them out.
Yeah, and it should be an exciting team, and I think that while they might even avoid fighting relegation, I think they might be safe quite early on and then just vibe in like 12th position or something around that.
Okay, yeah.
Optimistic.
That would be a pretty good goal. I don't see them as a playoff team in their first season, but yeah, not getting relegated would be a nice start. Anything else on Lviv? Just any more details about the Ukrainian team joining the league before we move on?
No, I think we can move on. Like, this is a team that I don't know as much about as the other teams in the league, so I don't feel like talking too much about them, about stuff I'm not really sure about.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. I mean, being in the US, I don't get to watch the PlusLiga quite as accessibly and with the commentary and the coverage that we get in Italy. So my background is going to come in a little bit more on these later teams that we see a little bit more. So the early ones, Paweł, will definitely be carrying me a little bit. However, this next team that we need to talk about, there's one very interesting name on the list, at least to Americans. This team is BBTS Bielsko-Biala. And Paweł, I also want your help in correcting my Polish pronunciations. I think this is a good opportunity for people to learn how to actually say these team names. So if I say anything wrong, please jump in and correct me.
This time you were absolutely correct, so no worries.
Great to hear. That might be rare. But so Bielsko-Biała won the second division last year. Who'd they beat in the finals? Is it Benzin?
Yes, they beat MKS Benzin, team that got relegated 1 year earlier.
Yeah, I thought their name looked familiar as a former PlusLiga team. But anyway, Bielsko-Biała won the second division. They didn't even have to play in that relegation series against Stal Nysa, which we'll talk about in a second. And they kept a little bit of their team intact that won last year, but just like a lot of teams that will get promoted up to the top division of any country, they're going to have to go out in the offseason, get new sponsors, and get players to build a roster that can compete in that top division of the country. Because, like I said, the goal of any team who's new to the top division is to stay there. Do not get relegated. And it's just hilarious to me that this Bielsko-Biała team is going to attempt to not get relegated on the shoulders of none other than American legend Jake Haynes. Jake Haynes is going to start at opposite for this team, as he did for probably the second half of last year for this team as they went on to win the second division. They're going to try to ride Jake Haynes the entire season long and not get relegated, and I'm fascinated to see how that works out for them.
Yeah, definitely. It will be fascinating to watch, and I think it will be mostly on Haynes and Gergie, the Hungarian guy, because the rest of this team doesn't look too good. Like Zimmerman is okay, but their middles are not PlusLiga quality, and their liberos were good in Pierwsza Liga, but they didn't stand out exactly. But they are at least like young, so there is a chance that they will grow and like become PlusLiga quality. However, I don't have such hopes for their middles. And looking at the second opposite, so Sinoski, who is a guy who played in Austria last year, and he was on the bench most of the season, so it looks like a complete gamble. Very cheap guy, and they hope that like he's big, athletic, so maybe he will be good. So if he is not good, it looks like it will be all on Haynes and Gergie, and that might not be enough.
This Dalton Sinoski guy, I guess he's Canadian. I don't know anything about him. If we got any Canadians in the YouTube live chat, let us know if you know anything about this Sinoski guy. But I just saw a comment in the chat. Haynes is a good player. He did well at the Pan Am Cup. Couldn't disagree more. I want to be very clear about my thoughts about Jake Haynes. He is basing your entire team around him offensively to not get relegated for a year is a mistake. He is huge. That's great. He has a good arm. He's pretty coordinated, but he's extremely slow, extremely unathletic. He barely jumps off the ground, and he's the least mentally stable or mature player that I think I've ever seen. He is a mental nightmare. He will collapse at the earliest signs of adversity, and you just do not want to base your entire season around this guy or put all of your hopes in this guy to have you not get relegated from the PlusLiga. I do not see him as a PlusLiga quality opposite, and I don't really understand why he's been getting playing time on Team USA the last couple of years. That's just really confusing to me.
Weird.
And
yeah.
it's very, very weird.
Yeah, I think they are just still on the wave because Jake Haynes during second half of the season looked quite good, and he was very, very good in playoffs. Like playoffs of Pierwsza Liga, that's when Haynes like came into the squad and took the starter role for sure for himself. He had loads of aces, very solid blocking, and his spiking was like around 55% kills with like around 25 points in games.
That's pretty good.
So yeah, it's really good, and his numbers in playoffs were good, but he sat on the bench first half of the season, and when he was subbed in back then, he didn't look that great, and I have really a lot of doubts whether he can be like good, consistently good whole season. And they don't really have like a guaranteed option to like replace him in case he doesn't do well. They will be in big troubles. Same with Gergi actually, but it's another story.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this Gergia guy, Hungarian outside hitter. And they went out and got Jan Zimmerman from Germany, who set in Italy last year. So that's nice. You at least get a setter for your season who's at least been there before. But yeah, Jake Haynes, I mean, the point you made that he came on in the playoffs last year was really hot. But my two things I want to say about that: one, that's against second division competition. And two, nobody had ever seen him before. Once you get PlusLiga level teams with the resources that they have to scout against people, and once there's a little bit of film on Jake Haynes at the PlusLiga level, I guarantee you his numbers will fall off the cliff. I absolutely guarantee it. So you can hold this receipt and get back to me in about a month or maybe around New Year's, and we can take a look at Jake Haynes' numbers month by month, and I guarantee you that his numbers will drop off significantly.
Yeah, the best proof is that they beat MKS Będzin in final of playoffs in second division. The same Będzin later played in relegation series against Nysa. It was so bad I didn't even remember it happened because Nysa like easily swept them without any problems, and it wasn't even competitive. So he looked good against him in finals of second division, but this team wasn't PlusLiga quality.
Yeah, I think that's well enough said. And I don't know that much else about this Bielsko-Biala team other than Zimmerman. And you said you have serious concerns about the middles. I agree. I think we talked about the same thing in Italy, where the least logical places to spend money on foreigners, especially with the limits and the different leagues, is on the middle blocker and the libero positions. And so you're going to have to find a native, in this case Polish, set of guys at libero and middles that can be PlusLiga quality. And that I don't know about any of these three guys. I don't know anything about who their middles or libero will likely be. But if you're saying that you don't think they're going to be PlusLiga quality, at least not right away, I definitely believe you.
Yeah, middles were like very unimpressive in Pierwsza Liga, and they are not super young, so it's not like they are promising players that are on the rise or something like that. And basically, they have 4 players. I think they might be rotating quite heavily, but to be completely honest, I don't think their middles are going to look great. Their outsides might also be an issue because to me it looks like they were set on signing Rafał Buszek, but then he decided to move to Nysa and Nysa managed to like get rid of one of other outsides. And they were left with in a difficult situation because they didn't have a Polish outside to start next to Gergie. So they were just like took anyone, the best available players, which was Urbanovic and Formela, and they were passed in PlusLiga. And let's be honest, they were not good enough to play a big role in a team. And it looks like at least one of them will start. So I don't think this team is looking great.
Yeah, likely relegation candidate. I think that's fair to say.
I think they are main relegation candidates, and the only reason to basically take a look at this team is their duo of liberos. I kind of hope Fiałek will continue to start because he was quite good in Pierwsza Liga, and he's very young. I think he was born in 2003, so he turned 19 this year. So 1 year as a starter in PlusLiga might be big for his development.
Yeah, same thing goes for Italy. If you can get a native, really young libero and throw him out there for a season, if he improves, then he can turn into a really good prospect. I think we've already spent too much time talking about this team. Let's move on to the first team that actually did play PlusLiga last year, and that is Stal Nysa. So Nysa had I didn't know that much about this team. I knew that they were downright horrible the first half of the year last year. If I remember, I seem to remember looking at one point and they were like 0-13. I'm not sure if they won a game.
I think so.
Yeah, they might not have won a game the entire first half of the season last year. And they had Mitch Stahl, the American middle blocker there. They had Wassim Bentara from Tunisia, who's back. But then they kind of got at least better, maybe caught a little bit of fire towards the end of the year. Still ended up finishing in last, but they got to play that Benson team to stay in the PlusLiga, and sounded like they beat them pretty easily. So Nysa is back. They go out and get Timofey Zukowski for the Croatian setter, he's been around. They get Nicolas Zerba, the Argentinian middle blocker who we saw at VNL this year. So I at least know those couple guys. And then, like Paweł just mentioned, they went out and got Rafał Buszek, who has spent a decent amount of time on both the Polish national team and good clubs before, like Resovia is one that I remember.
Zaksa, Resovia, yeah.
Zaksa, that's right,
yeah. The big thing about them last season, it was they fired their coach, but they were still struggling, and they signed El Graoui, who will probably start on the bench this season. But as soon as he joined, they finally could set slightly less to Bentara, because it was like whole offense was on him. With El Graoui joining, they started to be spread out a little bit more, and with that, their results got way better, because teams like couldn't easily figure out. Like in the past, it was like, okay, he will set Bentara, and we will deal with that. And then El Graoui joined, and I think, looking at table for just second half of the season, they would be 8th.
Wow,
so,
that's a huge difference.
Yes, it was huge difference, and just this one signing plus change of coach and change of libero was what got them out of this slump. And once they started winning, they got way better, and they looked quite good. They were just a bit unlucky that Radom got 6 points, 3 points on Zaksa when they wanted to start their bench.
I remember that.
Played the best game they've ever played, I think. And then they beat Zawiercie with Kovacevic setting in 3 or 4 sets.
I remember that too. Yeah, there was all sorts of goofy stuff going on last year. I didn't know anything about this El Graoui character, Moroccan guy, but it did sound like he came in and was really good. That he's going to have an issue this year with breaking into the lineup because he's not Polish, and Nysa already has probably 3 foreign starters in Zukowski, Bentara, and Zerba, if I had to guess. Is that right?
Yes, that's my guess as well. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Bentara switched to Polish license in future.
I have heard rumors about that.
Because, yes, that's what I've heard too. And his mother is Polish, and he basically has no good reason to continue playing for Tunisia. So it looks like he is planning on doing the same switch as some other characters in past did. And to me, it looks like the best possible solution for Nysa, and it would allow them to play El Graoui if they really need to. And it would be good for Bentara himself, because he would become way more attractive on transfer market.
Yeah, it would significantly help his club career, and I mean, he already kind of checked all the boxes playing for Tunisia. You got to go to the Olympics once, great. You're not gonna really do much more playing for the Tunisian national team. So yeah, keep an eye out if Wasim Bentara chooses to switch to Polish nationality. They also have Kento Miyaura, I think is how you say his last name. Yeah, the Japanese backup opposite, the lefty who kind of sat behind Nishida most of the summer. So that's nice. You can use him maybe as a service substitute at the very least. But if you need to give Bentara a break, he can come in and bang some balls. Because, my impression last year, Bentara just got way too much of a set load.
Yes, especially in first half of the season before El Graoui joined, he was overworked.
Yeah, and he's a freak athlete, but everybody has their limits. So,
getting Miyamura before the end, it will be good for the social media, I guess. There is at least one more positive to this signing.
Yeah, rule number 1: if you want more Instagram or TikTok followers, sign a Japanese player. We've seen that work. Seen that work in the past. Before we move on, Paweł, where would you about place this Nysa team to finish this year? I mean, maybe top 10? Maybe top 10?
Yeah, possibly, because Bentara has been really good. Zerba is quality player as well, and Zukowski is solid. But the biggest question mark is like, who will be their second middle? Because they've got 3 guys. All of them were like decent seasons in Pierwsza Liga, and they are all quite young. I mean, especially Jankowski, who was breakthrough player last year. He was born in 2002, so he turned 20 this year. He has never been part of national team before this season, any kind of youth teams or anything. And he was I think the most impressive middle in terms of raw numbers, besides his service, which is okay, flawed, but not impressive, not that good. However, he has been one of the better blockers and one of the best spikers in second division, so I hope he will start and continue to develop. The second question is the outside role, because Buszek has been sitting on the bench in Resovia for years, so I have my doubts whether he can be like as good as he was before, or at least partially as good. However, they also have Kwasowski, who was very disappointing last year, but a year before he has been great for GKS Katowice. And then the other most likely more offensive outside will be either Gierzot or Ilgrawi. Gierzot is, well, one of the biggest Polish prospects born after 2000. So I think there are high hopes. He wasted most of his season last year when first he was injured. Then he didn't play a lot in Cuprum. So I hope he will start now, and I hope he will continue to develop, because his development in the last 3-4 years has been really impressive. He used to be a middle. He has been switched and became like the best Polish player in his national team at his age in like
That's
2
an
years.
Impressive switch. You don't see that very often.
So yeah, I really hope he can deliver this season. And if he delivers, if he plays really well, and either Buszek or Kwasowski continues to play well, then I can even see them challenging for this 8th place. But that's like perfect scenario for them. However, I don't think relegation is a realistic threat for them.
Okay, that's good to know. I think at the very least this Nysa team is going to be pretty fun to watch. I really like Bentara.
Yeah.
He's ridiculously dynamic. So let's move on. There's still plenty of teams to get through even before we get to last year's playoff teams. Let's talk about Czarni Radom. I don't know very much about this team, but the real important thing, especially if you're a member of the Volleyball Source Discord, this is the team to watch if you want to watch Uncle Mo play club volleyball this year. Mauricio Souza of Brazil has made a new home in club, and he's playing in Poland, and a new group of fans will get converted to the religion that we have created around Uncle Mo this year.
Yeah, I mean, there is one of the most likely good reasons to watch them. The other one is probably watching Paweł Adamczyk, who is really small but really, really athletic, and he looks kind of cool watching someone who is, well, as tall as me, being quality at the highest volleyball level.
182 on the roster,
yes,
according to Volleybox. That is a short outside hitter.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to start ahead of Łukasik or First, I think, who is their 4th outside. However, this is the team I would be really, really worried about. And according to the freshest rumors from today, Farina will not be playing for them, and they will be getting Damian Schulz from Skrabełchatów to replace him.
Interesting. What prompted that? I was surprised looking at rosters today and see that Schulz was a bench guy. I figured he would at least want to start somewhere.
Yeah, he was bench guy last year as well, but before that he was starting in Olsztyn. Of course, he had this like ridiculous 2 or 3 seasons for Trefl Gdansk before moving away. And when we took a look at the scrum, it was like 3 opposites. So it was, why did they sign third opposite? Well, that's why, because their second opposite got an offer and wanted to leave. I have no idea why Czarni decided to basically get rid of Farina and sign Schulz, because Farina, well, he has been rather inconsistent and not really great, but he has been quite proven as someone who plays for lower table part of tongue twisted, who plays for the teams in lower part of PlusLiga, but manages to save them from relegation and consistently scoring quite a lot of points, sometimes adding some aces. But his performances last season weren't too impressive. But I don't know. I don't feel like Schulz will be a huge upgrade unless they can somehow find a way to make him play like he did in Gdańsk.
Yeah, I've never loved Damian Schulz's game. I remember he got a year or 2 there on the Polish national team, and he kept making everybody mad by tipping every ball that he attacked at. I remember there was some annoyance around that. Yeah, I mean, Maybe. I think he's at least good enough to start, although I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
know
that's
about
fair.
that move until earlier today. I don't think there's anything more to say about Uncle Mo. I mean, we all know who he is at this point. He played for Vibo Valencia last year. They got relegated. I just hope the same doesn't happen to Czarni Radom, and it's
But
looking
it's
looking like it
looking
might.
likely, in my opinion.
Yeah, they do have two good middles, however.
Yes,
Lemansky is enormous. He's 217. That's ridiculous. And then Temema, the Estonian kid
so,
who played a little on Resovia last year, right?
yes. He was their third middle, and he was subbed in quite often. And whenever he was subbed in, he played really well. It was good.
Yeah, I remember a couple good playoff moments from him. So I don't know anything about the setter either of Wojcicki.
Uh, yeah, Wojcicki is a guy who played like at the really high level ages ago because he's in his like
He's
37, I think, or 38,
39, I think.
even 39. Yeah.
1983, yeah.
And last year when he was starter back in AZS Olsztyn, it was I think 3 years ago because then he moved to Resovia and sat on the bench. He was really way worse than 1 year before. He's short setter. I think he's 182, just like Rushin. And I don't know. I feel like he has dropped in quality 2 years ago. So I would expect to see another drop in quality now. And he was hardly good enough to start in past. So I have my doubts whether he will be good enough now. Maybe he will be. Maybe he will be more of he will play like a mentor role for Viktor Novak, so the other setter, who is quite young and had some chances last year before he got injured. Year before he was starting setter in second division, so maybe that's why they chose him. However, I'm looking at who their coach is, and as probably everyone who is part of our Discord knows, I'm not the biggest fan of Jacek Nawrocki, and I feel like he's not helping their case, and I would be really worried about them. However, I think they will survive because they are not the worst team in the league because
Yeah,
they're close to Bielsko.
yeah, Bielsko-Biala is probably worse, but I don't. I would be thrilled if I went this entire season, and did not watch a Czarni Radom game. That would be totally fine with me. I don't need any more of Uncle Mo in my life. I think I've seen everything there is to see.
Well, maybe you would see something new here because, well, he has like completely different teammates this time. But
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect a lot.
I'm not expecting much. I think that's just about all there is to say. We're ready to move on to the next team.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Next team, Slepsk Malow Suwalki. Did I kind of get that
Yes.
pronunciation right?
Yes,
All right.
Suwalki, yeah.
I'm learning. So Suwalki's kind of cool. They had Josh Twiniga last year, which is why a lot of Americans might have known about them. 2 years, I think, Twiniga
2
was
years,
there.
yes.
Yeah, so he's gone. We'll talk about Twiniga's new PlusLiga team in a minute, but they do go out and go get Matias Sanchez, the little Argentinian setter who we've all loved watching the past several years. Tiny, definitely going to be the smallest non-libero in the league. Let me look up exactly how short he is. Probably maybe not even 180.
70s. Yeah, he's 170 something.
173. That's crazy.
Yes.
So they're going to have a guy that small as a 6 rotation setter, and so he's not going to block anybody, but he will run a pretty awesome and fast offense. And another prospect I'm really excited about is Miran Kujundžić, a Serbian outside hitter who I got to see in person in VNL this summer, who looked really, really promising.
Yeah, definitely their best player, I think.
Yeah,
at least on paper.
Yeah, so he's 97, 1997. So he's going to be about 25, and I think Kujundžić is ready for the PlusLiga level. Their last foreigner is this Andreas Takvam character, a Norwegian guy in the middle. Two Norwegians in the PlusLiga. I don't know what world we're living in right now. I'm surprised.
Takvam has a lot of history with PlusLiga. He has been signed for Kielce like ages ago when he was really young. He was okay there. Then he moved to Germany. And this will be his third season with Slepsk. He's a huge guy, really strong, like probably one of the most impressive spikes from last season. It would be Takvam. He had one great one. He's good blocker, and only his service is kinda not great, but it looks like he's working on it because he switched from average floater to he at least tried some jump serve or some hybrids. So at least it looks like he realizes what his weakness is and how to improve it.
Tell me about the rest of the Polish guys on this team. I don't know. I barely know Bartosz Filipiak, but I don't recognize a single other name on this roster.
Filipiak has been quite good for many years. He was very, very good for Bydgoszcz for 2 years when he was basically single-handedly saving them from relegation. He moved to Skra, and at first he wasn't starting, but he was starting, and until he got injured. And after his injury, he was gone. He wasn't as good as he was before. And after spending the rest of this season on the bench, he moved to Lublin last year, and his season was really underwhelming. I think he was one of the worst PlusLiga starters. However, I feel like after seasons out, he was also really, really good in Gdańsk with Marcin Janusz and Paweł Halaba, who might start, but we will see this season too. When they finished 5th and beat, I think, Jastrzebski Wegiel in Polish Cup quarterfinal before it got cancelled due to COVID. So I feel like he might be good once again this season because he will work with better setter. Because say what you want about Sanchez, he's short, but his setting is amazing.
Yeah, that's why. It's why you can afford to put a guy that's 173 out all 6 rotations.
Yeah, so that's why I feel like he can get back to high level, and if he gets back to high level, then they have really strong roster because Kuyondzic and Filipiak and, well, whoever will be their second outside. I don't think it will be Depowski. I think Buchowski might be more likely because he's good passer, or Halaba, who worked really, really well with Janusz, and I feel like someone somewhat crazy, more creative, who loves to play very, very fast balls to the wings might work well with Halaba, and that might be actually a push towards the right direction for them. The only thing I don't like about them is that they signed amazing setter who loves to play with middles, and one of the middles is just a huge guy that's Takfam, but the other 3 are just weak offensively. Like Sapinski, if you ask anyone about him, they would probably say he's a good server, but when someone asks about middle and they say, yeah, he can serve really well,
not a good sign.
Doesn't say a lot about their blocking or spiking, then there we have an issue. And the other 2 are just not good. Like Rudzewicz is the legend of the club, so I understand why they are keeping him as 4th middle. He has been with the team since 3rd or 4th event division, so
wow,
for ages, yeah. So I feel like they have to keep him because he's really good. He plays his role as a 4th middle, like he can play there, but he shouldn't be a starter. However, Sapinski and Smolinski aren't too good. So I feel like
about where would you put them in the rankings? I mean, they finished 12th last year. You think they can do better than that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially if they somehow can find the way to make if Halaba and Filipiak go back to the level they showed in Trefl Gdansk, they can fight for top 8 for sure. But that's very unlikely because it was almost 3 years ago. So there is a reason why they are now in Suwalki still playing for Skra in Filipiak's case, or for Zawiercie in Halaba's case. So it's possible, but I wouldn't count on it. However, with Kuyondzic, Sanchez, and the others, I feel like they should be 12 is the lowest they can go.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment. I really, really like Kuyondzic a lot. I'm excited to see him for a full PlusLiga season. All right, let's move on. Coming up next is LUK Lublin, and this has confused me forever. I didn't realize that there were 2 teams, and one was named Lublin and the other was named Lubin, which we'll get to in a second. But this team is Lublin, and This will be an easy one for Americans to follow along with because we've got 2 Americans on this roster, and Jeff Jendrick and Dustin Watton, and an honorary 3rd American in Nicolas Sherzhin, who won NCAA Player of the Year a couple years ago. So I like this roster. I mean, they go and get Marcin Komenda from Nysa. He's set a little bit for the national team. I think he's probably a top half in the league of Polish setters. I think Sherzhin's awesome. I'm excited to finally. Well, he had that one good season in Suwalki where he led the league in aces, but he needs to start somewhere, and I'm excited that he's going to do that. And then Jendrik is awesome. He finally needs another shot at the PlusLiga after his Resovia year didn't go so well.
Yeah, it's a kind of a trend because we have like Jendrik, year in Resovia didn't go so well. Komenda, 1 year in Resovia, then things didn't go well for him. Same with Szerszeń, who was sitting on the bench in Resovia. So
twice, 2 different times.
Yes, 2 different seasons with one break year in Suwałki where he was really good. However, I feel like this is I think I would put them at 8th right now. So this is the team that would break into the 8th place. Yeah. Nowakowski is a solid league player. Wotten was one of the best liberos in the league, at least when it comes to passing, because he was playing only as a passing libero last year for whatever reason. Komenda is like top half setter, like you've said. And I feel like between Komenda, Szerszeń, Wodarczyk, like these good wings, solid middles, good libero. Their coach has been achieving good results in past, so it's not like unlikely that he will get a lot out of this team. And looking at them, I don't know, I feel like top 8 is actually a possibility because I don't know, I feel like Szerszeń will be their standout player. And
I hope so. I've seen Szerszeń play in person so many times. He plays in the VLA in the States when he comes home in the summer. He won a championship with Team LVC this summer. I've never in my life seen in person a guy with an arm that fast. And I've seen national teams. I've seen a lot of volleyball in person. I have never seen a guy with an arm that fast. His arm is unbelievable. And like I mentioned, he led the league in aces at Suwalki a couple years ago, and he's got that potential. And him, Watton, and I don't know very much about Wodarczyk, but if they can control the ball and get a lot of balls to Jendrik in the middle, that's cool. By the way, this is not Peter Nowakovsky. This is Jan Nowakovsky, the middle blocker. I think that's important to point out. But I like Komenda. I've seen him a little bit. I think he's good enough. I don't know if I would pick him at 8th or to get to 8th because I think there's a lot of teams in the league that are better, but I would love to see it. Before we move on, tell me about this Malinowski character, this opposite. I've never heard of him.
Malinowski was, at first he was in Jastrzebski Wegiel, but he's like their homegrown player. He has been very uninspiring for many years. Actually, he played together with Romaś, so their second opposite, back in Cuprum Lubin some years ago. They were so uninspiring that Łukasz Kaczmarek ended the season as an opposite instead of outside as he started.
And the rest is history.
After move to Zawiercie, he had like some really, really good seasons. And at one point, he looked like one of the best opposites in the league for a short period of time. And he has great service, that's for sure. However, his blocking is terrible. Like his career average is around 0.1 block per set.
What? Is an opposite?
0.1.
0.1? That's horrible. Yeah. How is that possible?
Yes, he has. I don't know how, but he is really bad blocker. However, he makes up for it with his service, and his spiking is really solid. Left-handed guy, maybe not the tallest, not the strongest, or not with the best technique, but he has solid fundamentals, and it works for him. He will be probably very motivated because he has been benched by Konarski last year. He didn't get a lot of chances to play, but when he's on top of his game, he's actually quite good. So he might be decent if we see him the version we saw in Zawiercie. However, if we see the same guy we saw before that, then they will rely on their left side. However, their left side is good. Wodarczyk had a very good year. And Szerszeń is, in my opinion, like one of the players to watch. He has something to prove. And he's still quite young, so his ambition might be looking towards Polish national team, even though it's really stacked in his role. He has a chance to get past guys like Shimura or Orczyk, so I wouldn't be surprised if he actually turned it around and get the call in the future.
That would be incredible. And to do that, he just has to start for a whole year again and be very, very good. And I know that he can do that. He just needs to be in a place where he can start, and Lublin might be the place. So this will be a fun team to watch if you are American like myself. I'm really hoping for a good season from Jeff Jendrick. I mean, I thought he was great in Berlin last year before he got hurt. Thought he was good this summer until the World Championship, where I thought he was pretty horrific. He was terrible against Poland in that bracket match. So terrible. So I want to see him have a good year in the PlusLiga as well, and hopefully stick around.
Yeah, and I think it will be a good place for him and for Szczecin to get better and play a lot.
So moving on to the next team, who for the longest time I really thought was the same team as this. So we just got done talking about Lublin. Now we're going to talk about Lubin. Cuprum Lubin is a different team than Lublin. That confused me forever. But Lubin, this team, I don't know very much about this team. I mean, they've got Dmitry Kovalov, the Ukrainian guy who we saw at World Championship across from Plotnitsky. They've got Alexander Berger, the Austrian guy who used to play in Perugia. And then they got Florian Kraga in the middle, who I think was there last year, if I remember.
Yes, he was.
And so that's their foreigners. They've got Rafael Shimura's little brother. His name Kamil Shimura.
Shimura, yes.
And he's good. He played VNL a little bit this summer for Poland in week 1. Past that, I don't know very much at all about this Lubin team. Paweł, tell me what do the people need to know about this team?
Well, since I like to follow this more on player at the start of their careers, so I'm looking towards guys like Shimura or Kapica, who is born in 2000, so still fairly young, who had a decent year. And probably the most exciting, for obvious reasons, is their second setter, Kajetan Kubicki, who was part of the team at Euro Championship under 20 that just finished. And he's actually a really good setter. And looking at Polish national team, it's obvious why he's so exciting prospect for us.
I don't know. Born in 2003. That's exactly the age that you're looking at for a setter to start to really become a national team level prospect.
Yeah, so this is a year where he can make a name for himself, but Pająk, their starting setter, has been good last year in Lublin, so the previous team. And I'm a bit worried whether he will get to start a lot. They also have other decent outside. It's a Polish guy called Wojciech Ferenc, who was really good at some point. Especially he had great part of the season last year where they were winning quite a bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to start ahead of Berger or Kovalov, depending on what their coach decides. But I don't know. This is a team that should, just like they did in previous years, so easily avoid relegation, but probably not good enough to get into top 8 overall. I don't know. Kapica is young, but he isn't super athletic. But he has a great arm and really powerful serve. However, he makes lots of errors, so we'll see.
I don't know how much more there is to say about this team. I think that's a pretty good assessment. Like they finished 10th last year. It sounds to me like they will probably finish somewhere very similar this year.
Yeah. No, like kind of a team that is below mid-table, but not super inspiring, not super great to watch, sadly, nowadays, because they were quite cool to watch in the past, but good enough to easily avoid relegation.
Yeah, they pulled the classic move, signing a Japanese player last year, bringing in Masahiro Sukita to set, and now he's gone, so this team won't have as many eyeballs. And
they used to have Yanagita as well, so I guess they learned from experience.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to say about this Lubin team. Let's move on to this is the point in the league where I start to actually know a little bit about the teams that we're talking about, and we're talking first about Projekt Warszawa. So Warszawa is really interesting because they played in Champions League last year. They finished 3rd 2 seasons ago, which was pretty crazy, and then had a terribly disappointing second half of the year, not even making the playoffs in 9th. So to go from playing 3rd, play Champions League, and then 9th in 1 year is is not good. That's really falling off a cliff. And I commentated one of their Champions League games, pools. I think they were playing Zirap Bankasa from Turkey, and they just looked terrible. Looked really bad. And they had a lot. They kept the pieces intact that I actually liked about this team, and that's the middles and the libero. So Andrei Vrona, Peter Novakovsky are awesome in the middle. That's a great middle duo, even though those guys are getting older. And then Damian Wojtaszek at libero is really, really good. So I have no issues with any of those three guys. My issues were elsewhere on this team last year. They had Dusan Petkovic, who we talked about last week with me and Tommy not liking him very much at all. I think bringing in Linus Weber at opposite is an upgrade.
Yes,
they had a little bit of uncertainty at outside hitters. They lose Bartosz Kvolek, but they bring in Kevin Tilly, the French guy, obviously, who I really like. I think that's an upgrade as well. And then they had a huge uncertainty at setter with both Angel Trinidad and Jay Blankenau. They couldn't decide which one of those guys they were going to play. They get rid of both of them, and they bring in Jan Firle, who I really, really like. So is it fair to say, Paweł, that Warszawa had a really good offseason?
Yeah, I like their offseason, even though the start of this first few weeks will be difficult because Kevin Tilly got injured at World Championships.
Right.
And it looks like they are looking around to find someone else to sign, at least for this part of the season, but we'll see.
Igor Grabelny's okay though. Like their third outside hitter is at least like PlusLiga caliber.
I guess depends which Grabelny we will see, because Igor, when he was first choice back 2 years ago, he was amazing when he was coming off the bench. He forced basically coach to give him a starter role, and he had great season. So Warszawa decided to keep him as a starter for previous year. And it was a mistake because last year he was just bad. So that's the issue with him. I hope he will be back to being good this year. The only reason they got third, like in past, is basically Kvolek putting the team on his back and carrying them there, together with middles and libero, because they are quite good, like you said. So losing Kvolek is a big hit, but they've made so many upgrades elsewhere that it's not a big issue, I think. I really like Firle too.
He's really good. Really impressed by him at VNL the first week.
Yeah, he's kind of a setter who went through quite difficult road. He wasn't like super appreciated as a young player, but coach Kuba Bednaruk signed him to Warszawa, and he was basically learning from Paweł Zagumny for 1 year. Then when Zagumny got injured, he was forced to play as a starter for a while, so he had like lots of experience. And then he moved to Belgium, where he was actually playing, not sitting on the bench like many other young setters. And when he came back, he became a starter for Katowice, where he was good. And last year, he was even better with AZS Olsztyn, where he created a cool duo between him and De Falco. They were playing some insanely fast balls to this left side. So I feel like another move upwards is good for his career. The only issue is like this second outside, because it's Szalpuk, who hasn't been good in a while, and he showed he can be good in past, but he's not getting any younger, and his previous years has been quite underwhelming. Same with Grobelny, who, like I said, had 1 good year, then bad years. We will see which version of him we will see. However, as long as Tilly shows what he showed in previous club season and what he showed for French national team, and Weber continues to improve, then I don't see a reason why they wouldn't make it into playoffs.
Yeah, this is definitely a playoff roster, in my opinion. I think if Weber has like a terrible year, then maybe they don't make it. But even they have the old Dutch legend Niels Klopwijk on the bench behind him, who is old, like just classic old school name, who I've always loved. He can come in and at least not make any errors, and that's a weakness in Weber's game, is that he can make a lot of errors sometimes. They've got a good third middle in Yuri Semeniuk, the giant Ukrainian guy. That's awesome. And then I guess I didn't see enough of Grabelny last year to know just how bad he was. But if Tilly gets healthy, I think Tilly Szalpuk, that's a good enough ball control duo for this offense to be pretty good. So I like this Warszawa team. I definitely see them making the playoffs. Yeah,
definitely. And it's like they weren't bad immediately. Like they've I think they've played one of the best games of the season against Jastrzebski Wegiel in like game week 3 or 4 last season, and they beat them. But then like they got some injuries, Kwolek got injured, they've lost some games, their morale dropped, and they were horrendous in the second half of the season. They were the worst team in the league. And that's why they dropped from, I think, third or fourth after the first half to ninth in the end.
Yeah, they were so bad in Champions League. It is a long time since I've seen a team, especially from a team like from a league as good as the PlusLiga, be that bad in Champions League. It was rough.
Yeah, they weren't. It looked like they weren't ready to play in Europe as well as in Poland, and they finally it caught up with them, and they completely collapsed. And once they collapsed, their morale got even worse, and it was over.
Interesting to point out the coaching situation, because they had Andrea Anastasi last year, who they got rid of. They brought in another Italian, this Santilli guy who I've never heard of, but then Anastasi somehow fails his way upwards, gets fired from a Warszawa team that was horrible, and now he gets to coach Perugia this year. So
yes, Anastasi has been here for ages, and he was supposed to go to Trefl Gdansk, but then Gino Sirci called, and you don't refuse Gino Sirci. So
no, you certainly don't. Anything else to talk about Warszawa before we move on? I think this team's going to be
no. I think Santilli is well-known coach in Poland. He has been coaching in Jastrzębie and in past, for example. So he's good, not like amazing good, but really good coach. So no reason to be worried in that part.
Yeah, I agree. That this Warszawa team is a playoff team. Speaking of playoff teams, we're now starting the playoff teams from last year. So coming out of nowhere, just barely overtaking Warszawa at the end of last year to grab the 8th playoff spot was Katowice. And Katowice had a really interesting offseason. They lost. It seems to me like they lost a lot. Now, I only watched a little bit of this team last year. No, they actually didn't lose that much. Maybe I'm overrating the impact of Micah Ma'a.
Yeah,
I watched this team a little bit last year because Micah Ma'a was setting them. And he moves on to Ankara, where he's going to get to set Namir Abdelaziz, who wouldn't take that offer. I know there was some drama surrounding his exit from Poland, which we can talk about in a second, but they basically just replaced him with Georgi Saganov, the Bulgarian starting setter. And if I'm not mistaken, everything else in the starting lineup is pretty much the same, right?
They basically changed like fourth outside, but it won't really matter because they have 3 pretty comparable outsides.
Yeah, Rousseau, the Belgian kid who we've seen a bunch. Gonzalo Quiroga played at UCLA in college in the States. Mm-hmm. He's Argentinian. I don't really know the middles.
Yeah, as well. This is the third guy that is quite good and might actually start ahead of one of them.
Who, Szymanski? He's pretty good? Okay.
Yeah, Szymanski is pretty good. Their middles are good. Libero is really good too. The only issue, I'm looking at Jarosz because he's not getting any younger. I think he's 35.
He's 35. Legend, of course, but he's 35.
Yeah, he was really good player in the past and he's still decent, but I don't know how big impact on the team Micah Ma had. So that's where I will look at them, because their names, like looking at who plays for them, they weren't too great last year. They weren't looking super exciting, but then it looked like with Ma at the wheel, if I may call it this way, they started to going places they weren't supposed to go, and that's how they got into playoffs. I don't think Saganov has the same style, and he cannot give them as much as Ma did. And even though Saganov is probably similarly good at blocking, he cannot spike as much as Ma. He's not as good server as Ma, and he's not as good setter as Ma.
He's also not as good of a defender as Ma.
Yes,
Ma is a terrific defender.
Yes, so I feel like this loss of Micah Ma might play a way bigger role than we expect. And I wouldn't be surprised if GKS just dropped like a stone and just maybe not to relegation zone, but like 4 or 5 places lower and this season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of see a disappointing season on the horizon for Katowice. I don't see them making the playoffs. I mean, if other teams from outside the playoffs last year are going to improve and make the playoffs, then we have to see some of last year's playoff teams do the opposite and drop out. And I do think that Katowice is going to be one of them. I mean, neither Quiroga nor Russo are like particularly offensive, like firepower kind of outside hitters. And Jarosz, like you said, is just not getting any younger. I'm not really sure where the offense is going to come from on this team.
Yeah, I feel like Szymański is also not like amazingly offensively. He's pretty tall, but he's not super athletic. So it looks like they will not have great firepower. And in past, they made up for it with like good technique. Ma played like super risky style, and it worked for them. Seganov will not play the same style. He will play way slower. So they will probably struggle to adapt, and they won't be as impressive as they were. I don't think we'll see another game where Rousseau like scores 23 points in 3 sets with like almost 80% kills. He had like one insane performance like that. So that's not happening this year. I don't think they will make playoffs again.
Okay, yeah, I'm totally on the same page with you. I don't really see it for this Katowice team. Are you ready to move on?
Yes.
Great.
Let's go.
We've brought this team up several times already on the show because it seems to have produced a lot of great players that kind of come through and go elsewhere and have great careers. And I'm talking about Trefl Gdansk. So Gdansk is an interesting team. They've got the legendary Mariusz Własły, but he, I think it's fair to say, is towards the veteran support from the bench portion of his career.
Yes.
I don't think we're going to see him starting very much anymore. And that gives them really only, I don't know about if they're going to use a third foreigner in the starting lineup, but you've got Lucas Kampa, the German setter, who I really like, and you've got Luke Perry, the Australian libero, who I love. Really like those two guys. And I know about Urbanovic in the middle. I don't really know that much about the other Polish guys on this Gdansk team. So, Paweł, help me out with this.
Yeah, I don't think Czerwiński is going to start anytime soon, sadly.
Okay, I guessed. I picked a random.
Yeah, Czerwiński was a very good prospect. He played on the same team as Gierzot in youth national teams. However, he injured his arm quite seriously. Then national team coach, for whatever reason, decided that he has to play at European Championship and took him to the team with this injury, and he was forced to play. So instead of healing, he continued to train and play, and then he lost whole season due to the same injury, and he hasn't been like the same player ever since. So maybe he will get some chances, but I expect to see more of Sawicki or Martinez starting.
Yeah, they've got Jan Martinez, the Argentinian guy, who I don't know that much about. I mean, I feel like every time I saw him this summer, he was just a backcourt substitute. He's kind of like a more libero type player, right?
Yeah, I think so. But with Orczyk, who is really good offensively, and Boń, who is very, very good on offense, like good opposite, quality player. So someone more defensively minded like Martinez will be absolutely fine. I'm not sure whether he will be starting next to Orczyk or Sawicki will get to start and Martinez just come in whenever it's necessary. Because Sawicki, he didn't get to play a lot, but he was a service substitute for Skra, Bełchatów. And he had, like, whenever he was subbed in for a longer period of time, he was okay. And he played in third place playoffs 1 year earlier when Taylor Sander was still in Skra. And he got injured in, like, last semi-final game, I think. Sawicki, when it was obvious that Sawicki had to play because he was the only outside left, and he played actually very solid against Warszawa.
I actually remember that. I remember him coming in a couple years ago at Skra, and it was decently good. So I can see him playing starter.
He moves to Trefl, where he will probably get more chances to play. And to be fair, I feel like he can be quite a decent player, at least at league level. But yeah, mostly I'm looking at Kampa, who is a very good setter. Perry is amazing libero. Urbanovic is still young, but he came in a very good style last year when he got 3 MVPs in a row after Krer got injured. So, and Patryk Niemiec played his best volleyball back in Gdańsk 2 or 3 years ago. And he was starter for Warta Zawiercie last year, so it's not like he's a bad player. Together with Boń, who was like the best player on Slepsk Suwalki for the last 2 years. It looks like a very solid roster. And I'm still annoyed that Wlazły even started last year because they had Sasak, who is quite promising, even though he's not as young as he used to be. But I'm looking at Nasevich and whether they will go with Wlazły or Nasevich in case Poland cannot play.
Yeah, I was looking at this Nasevich kid, a Belarusian kid who they've signed. Apparently, they've signed him for 3 years. So he's going to be there for a little while. And he's born in 2003. So
yes,
crazy young prospect.
Yeah, he's product of their academy. So he's their like player. Ever since he moved from Belarus, he has been training with them. And he had some really, really good games in youth competitions, but then ran out of steam and didn't look so good in later parts. And I'm still not sure whether he's like quality and got tired or he's just that wildly inconsistent. But looking at what Wlazły gave the team as an opposite last year, I don't think that Nasevich can be worse. So I feel like opportunities might work.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said. Playoffs again for Gdansk, would you pick that?
Maybe. It will be tough because I feel like with teams like Lublin or Suwałki, they will fight for playoffs for sure because it's hard not to. I don't know if they will succeed. Like, I'm looking at Lublin, Warszawa, who from teams that were behind them, maybe Suwałki or Nysa if things go well for them. And I'm not convinced by some of parts of their bench as well. So, and I don't know what their coach will do as well. So
yeah, so playoffs would be a nice achievement for Gdansk.
Someone who will compete for playoffs for sure, but I'm not sure if they will succeed again.
And if I remember correctly, they got destroyed by Jastrzebski in the first round last year. So
I think they've won first match.
They did?
And yes, they won first game 3-2, and then their Jastrzebski chairman fired Gardini and got swept 3-0 twice.
That's what it was. What it was. Yeah, Gdansk was responsible for firing Andrea Gardini. That's
and
right.
It worked quite well for us.
It did. I remember we talked about it on the show last year. I'm like, why would you fire your coach at this point? What's it really going to do? Well, they turned it around and played significantly better. So I guess shout outs to Gdansk for triggering that.
Yeah, I don't know. They've lost Michał Winiarski, and I feel like he was a big part in their like recent successful seasons. They had like 5th, then they were 3rd in regular season, and they ended 6th after playoffs, I think. And last year they finished 7th, so like 3 really good seasons for a team with their budget. But now Michał Winiarski is gone, so we will see how they will do without him.
Yep, new coach Igor Juricic, Croatian guy who I've never heard of.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him.
Okay, let's move on. Continuing through last year's playoff teams, we've got Olsztyn, Indykpol AZS Olsztyn, another fun team if you're an American fan. This is where Josh Tuaniga ended up. So he moves from Suwalki here to Olsztyn. This is where TJ DeFalco was last year. So those two longtime Long Beach guys barely miss one another on the same club. But you also have Taylor Averill. So Taylor Averill was there last year. He was awesome, and he is back at Olsztyn. Rest of this roster, I actually really like. I like Mateusz Poręba as the other middle blocker. I like Lipinski at outside hitter. I love Karol Buchrin at opposite. And I don't know anything about Havryluk, the libero. I don't know anything about him. But my question is kind of with Moritz Karlicek at the second outside hitter spot, because last year, Olsztyn kind of built their team around DeFalco and then Maisam Salehi, the Iranian guy, and he got hurt and didn't play the rest of the year. And they ended up having to play Robert Andringa the rest of the year, who's basically a libero at outside hitter. Yeah. So if they could have 2 like actual outside hitters the whole year and replace a good setter like Firle with another good setter in Tuaniga, like this team could be really good again.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like a promising team. The only thing that worries me is their passing, because neither Lipinski nor Karlicek is well known for their passing, and Havryluk is another guy from the same team as Kajetan Kubicki, so under 20 national team member, and he was born in 2003 as well. So another super young guy, but he has been really impressive during this Euro, and in previous year in Pierwsza Liga, where he was statistically, I think, first or second in passing rankings in the whole league. So someone who will definitely have a tough life at first, and it will be a huge challenge for someone as young as him. But looking at how he performed so far, I wouldn't be worried. I think he's ready for this challenge, and I think he will probably get subbed out like at first, maybe in a game or two, because, well, that's how young players often have to get past that. But I think he's a great long-term libero for this club. So I wouldn't be worried about him, but looking at Lipinski and Karlicek, like, he doesn't get a lot of support. Like, Andringa will definitely be subbed in as a back row sub for any times to like help them. And maybe they will end the season with Andringa once again, like just like last year. Andringa was supposed to be the bench guy, but he ended as a starter, and he might play the same role this season because Butryn and Lipinski is like a lot of power on offense.
Yeah, you don't need any more arms than that. You don't need any more arms than Butryn by himself. That man, I had such a good time watching him at VNL.
Yeah,
he was
amazing swing,
ridiculous arm talent, crazy arm talent. I wish he made the World Championship roster.
Yeah, and they have great middles too. So it looks like maybe sacrificing someone as good offensively as Lipinski or Karlicek, but considering that Andringa is Dutch, it couldn't be Lipinski.
Right.
Unless they sub out Avril. So it looks like it will be Andringa for Karlicek if things get a bit too difficult. And
that's fine. If you've got 8 guys and or maybe a 9th guy and another libero behind Havriluk, like that roster right there, I could see scaring some teams in the playoffs. Like they barely missed out on winning a playoff series last year. They lost a crazy close series to Skra Belchatov.
Yes.
I could see them. This is maybe a semifinal team this year.
Yeah, I feel like this is a team that will make playoffs without any problems unless something weird happens, and a team that can actually challenge for top 4, maybe even 3rd place if they get like really lucky and things go well for them. So
and I have a feeling they're just going to be fun to watch the whole time. I mean, Avril's fun to watch, Butryn's fun to watch, Tuaniga's fun to watch.
And then there is Havril, this young guy who is really good. So, like, a lot of things work out in their favor. Definitely team to watch. Potential dark horse of the league as well. And I definitely like what they are doing with their team in recent seasons, because last year they've signed the Falco. And it was, as far as I know, the Falco was quite willing to stay until Resovia started throwing money around. Because one of the main reasons was getting to Aniga. They were like, hey, we are getting your friend, so how about you will stay for 1 more year? And
yeah, I had to believe that there was some relation in DeFalco and going out to get to Aniga. I mean, if this team had DeFalco instead of Karlicek even, they would be nasty. It'd be really fun to watch.
Yeah, Lipinski has been consistently very good in previous seasons. Like,
I like Lipinski. I saw him a little bit at VNL as well. He's big. He's like, what, 204-ish?
I think he's 202 or something like that. But he's really big, like, strong guy. His passing is like so, but very good service, good blocking, very good spiking. I think he had like, when Trefl finished 3rd in regular season, after like first half, he had like 55% kills and over 40% efficiency.
Whoa.
So that's like, he was at his best during that time. So when he is on the top of his game, he's really good. And like together with Butryn, that's like enough offensive power for a team. That's all they need. And they still have great middles and Karlicek. So
yep,
definitely
I agree.
A good team.
I like this Olsztyn team a lot. I'm excited for them this year. And we've talked so much about TJ DeFalco. That is a good segue to our next team, which is one that needs very little introduction. I'm talking about Asseco Resovia Rzeszow. Now, this team, the namesake of the Resovia curse, to start things off. I mean, Resovia consistently one of the biggest budgets in the PlusLiga. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely.
and they go out and have big off seasons every single year. Last year they had a huge off season. They bring in Jakub Kochanowski and Paweł Zatorski. Like they kind of break up the Zaksa dynasty and bring some of those guys over. They've got Klemen Chebul. They've got Jan Kozamernik. They have Drizga, who we can certainly talk about, but at least he's a top half-level Polish setter. Somehow, Resovia disappoints or underperforms every single year without fail. They always find a way to blow it, and I'm not exactly sure how they do this, but that's why there's this thing called the Resovia curse. So the first thing that I look at, there's a lot of things that I look at this Resovia team. One is they have 3 outside hitters. All of them are foreign, which 2 are going to start, and that's TJ DeFalco, Klemen Chebul, and Thibaut Rossard. I can't imagine that you bring in DeFalco and don't start him. I would be shocked by that. And I think Chebul has more scoring utility than Rossard does. But Rossard and DeFalco played together before. They played that year at Vibo Valencia when they were really good. So they've got an interesting question there. Then the other thing is, I still don't trust Maciej Muzaj. I don't think I'll ever really trust this guy. Oh, I don't know. I don't want to put an offense on his left shoulder and for an entire season and see how many balls he hits to the back wall. I don't know. I don't really trust this guy.
Yeah, it's like the same issues I had with them last year are still there. So like the least convincing positions are setter, Drizga, because he's okay. He's not a bad player, but he's like not fulfilling his potential, I guess. That's one way of saying it. And many people suggest that he has quite high ego. He won World Championship twice. He was starting setter for a national team until that's this season. And he probably gets loads of money from Resovia. He signed for 3 years when he joined, so he's staying for this and next season. And he's like the biggest question mark because he works great with some players like Iwovic in past, or it looked like he worked great with Semeniuk in national team. But he's good at setting opposites, but he's not so good at setting middles and to the left wing. Like, it took ages before he started to set Leon somewhat well.
That was the really crazy part, is that he couldn't even figure out how to set Wilfredo Leon, and that guy's got the biggest window of any volleyball player I've ever seen. So
that's like this huge question mark. And who was his backup? Yeah, Paweł Wojicki, like old guy past his prime who wasn't that good. Now this second setter is Michał Kędzierski, so the guy who was setting in Radom. Like, once again, someone who is okay backup, but he will not be a guy that can get subbed in and will change anything. Basically, he will not be an upgrade in any way, shape, or form.
When are we, as a volleyball world, going to stop allowing Fabian Drizga to ruin a team by insisting that he starts and take up so much budget everywhere? Like, we saw how this went for the Polish national team for years, and I don't care if they won 2 world championships in the setting. You're a Polish fan. Would you agree he probably brought them down rather than propelling them towards those world championships?
Yeah, in a way, definitely. Like, he was the weakest link of this team.
For sure.
And he didn't feel like he was the weakest link. I guess he was part of this company that felt like the most important part of the team. And like, kind of, in a way, the guys running the team under Heinen. So it looked like he is a tough character as far as we know. Like, he had his issues when Antiga was our coach, and he, like, whenever he was benched by him, he had like a conflict with him. However, his best season in career, like 2014-2015, when Resovia won title and was in Champions League final, like, he was actually really good back then. So maybe that played a role, that he has a past with Resovia and he actually showed some quality when playing for them in previous years. So maybe that's why they were willing to pay him so much.
We'll see how the Drizga experiment goes again. I think we've gotten enough data on this by now that I don't have very good feelings about this. Middle blockers, don't need to say that much. Kochanowski and Kozamernik are terrific. Excellent. Same with Paweł Zatorski. Don't need to say anything there. My question is about the wings, because again, you have 3 outside hitters. I don't know who they're going to start, and I don't love Maciej Muzaj. How do you see this season going, Paweł, for the 3 or maybe 4 outside hitter opposite characters for Resovia?
I guess Mulaj will start every game because their second opposite is Kuba Bucki, who is amazing substitute. Like when it comes to getting someone to just serve or like for half a game, amazing, maybe a single game too. But he's not a guy that can play whole season. So, and he wasn't as amazing for Resovia as he was for Jastrzebski Wegiel, where he was subbed in and he was constantly, every time he gets subbed in, he was amazing. Like their famous comeback against Zenit Kazan, against Zaksa in PlusLiga finals, like he was the main guy that brought them back into the game. But here, like he was quite average, so it looks like Mulaj will start, and he was slightly better last year, but that's still like not enough to be top PlusLiga quality. Looking at the left side, like probably they will start Trebul because he has been consistently starting for them, and they are probably hoping to see a lot out of him. And I guess the Falco, like they fought quite hard to get him, so it wouldn't make sense to keep him on the bench. However, it's Resovia, so no making sense. It's like weird for them. But yeah, I think it will be the Falco Trebul starting, and their passing will be an issue. So Jiska will have to run a lot, and when he has to run a lot, he will start to set really poorly. So someone will get subbed out. And I'm guessing, I don't know, I feel like maybe Trebul will be subbed out at first more often because the Falco is either hot or cold. Recently, at least it looked like. So when the Falco is hot,
that's definitely fair to say.
Yeah, it's like don't touch him, let him play. So Rosard would sub in for Trebul, but if the Falco is cold, then Rosard would be subbed in for him. Like it's a lot of offensive power, but a lot of tough characters once again. So a potential for more conflicts once again, and the rumored conflict was between Zatorski and Żyzga. They are both still there. So I don't know whether they can figure it out and like find a way to get rid of these conflicts and start playing together. Maybe it will work out. Maybe Żyzga will actually somehow work well with the Falco because he seems to be like a kind of guy that
I don't see that.
Works well with him, but
I don't know. I don't see those styles working very well at all.
I don't know, but it didn't feel like Žižka will work well with someone like Ivovic, and he did. And he worked quite well with Semenyuk in past, at least in my opinion, whenever they played together. So maybe that's like that's what I would hope for if I were a Resovia fan. Like maybe Žižka will find a good way to work really well with the Falco, and the Falco will be super hot whole year, and they have great middles, and it will work out. But I feel like it's more likely that they will basically get into playoffs based on how good their players are individually, and once again find a way to disappoint in quarterfinals and outside of top four.
The Resovia curse. That's the exact same thing I see with this team. I mean, Gianpaolo Madej, first-year head coach, who is well respected, he's got quite the task on his hands. Not only in like figuring out the three outside hitters and how that's going to work, but building this group into more than just a bunch of individual players. I think there's a lot of ego on this team. I think you described it pretty well, definitely. And it's going to be a problem for them. Even like TJ DeFalco is not going to be blameless in that discussion by the end of the year. So I'm curious to see how it goes. I agree. They're going to make the playoffs on pure talent alone. Almost no way they win a playoff series.
Yeah, unless they get lucky or somehow something magically changes there. But if Marcelo Mendes couldn't find a way, then I don't think Madej will find a way.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, we're down to the final four. We're getting there, ladies and gentlemen. Fourth place last year, a classic mainstay at the top of the PlusLiga standings, Skra Belchatov. And this team is always good. They're almost always playing in Champions League, but not this year. Because while they Belchatov finished third in the regular season, they actually lost the third place series to Zawiercie. So they will. Are they going to play CV Cup? Is that their plan?
I think so. They played last year, so I don't see a reason why they wouldn't play this year.
True. A lot of the same characters for Skra this year. Gregor Vormach again setting. Mateusz Binia, Karl Kłos in the middles are excellent. We like to make fun of Kasper Piechowski a lot in the Discord because he's like he's the chairman's son, right? And just doesn't belong there.
Yeah, and they decided to keep him as a starting libero and let Paweł Zatorski go. Like, I don't need to explain how.
One of the worst decisions in PlusLiga history, I would have to assume.
Yes.
My issue with this team is the wings, because they brought back Alexander Atanasievich last year. He is, it's well documented. Everett and I have talked about it a bunch on the 9x9. Definitely not getting any younger. I don't know how good of a season he had last year, but I don't know if I trust him very much for an entire season anymore.
Yeah, Atanasievich has been like the most random opposite in the league. Like,
he has been pretty random.
Yeah, it was almost like if they had some kind of a machine with numbers, and whatever number came out, that's how Atanasievich played, and he could be like 10 out of 10 in first set and 0 out of 10 in the second set. It's completely unpredictable. He could be like, I think against AZS Olsztyn, he had like first game, he has scored like over 20 points, had 7 aces, got MVP, they've won the game. Then they go back to the second game to Olsztyn, and Atanasievich is 0 out of 11 spiking after 1.5 sets with like -6 ratio with 5 errors, and he's horrendous. Only to come back in tiebreak and get an important block. Like, you never know what you get with him, and so he's like wildly unpredictable nowadays.
That's a pretty good assessment. Speaking of wildly unpredictable, check out this trio of outside hitters who I completely don't understand. Dick Coy, who I know they brought him in last year, just kind of a last-minute replacement for Taylor Sander. You've got Lukas Vashina, the Czech guy, who I always kind of thought of as an opposite. And then Filippo Lanza. What on earth is that outside hitter trio?
Yeah, that's like weird setup. Like, Coy has been pretty decent last year, especially in playoffs. Like, in playoffs, he has been quite good. And because they cannot get to playoff semifinals with middles, because their middles are amazing.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yes, and Womach abuses the middle as much as he can. Like, we were joking that triple block should jump to Bieniek whenever Womach is setting and the ball is somewhat close to the net, because that's what he does most of the time. However,
and it's their best offensive option, like, legitimately.
Yes, it is. So I'm not surprised they've kept Coy, and I don't know if he can be like as good as he was last year in playoffs for a whole season, but he is a decent player. Definitely someone who should be good enough to get them into playoffs and fight for top 4 again. However, Vasina, like, he had great Euros when Czech eliminated France in 2021, I think so. But besides that, he has been like nothing special. So I don't know if he can be like really good for Skra this year, if he can make this another step forward, or will be just underwhelming and Lanza will get to play most of the time.
Yeah, Vasina's young. He's 1999, so yeah, he can. I still have honestly the highest hopes for his career out of all the wings on this team. But
he definitely can.
Yeah, but will he?
The question is whether he will.
Right.
And well, I don't know what Lanza can do. Like, because
nothing. Lanza can do nothing. He spent a whole year on Perugia where they literally wouldn't set him a front row ball. They would send Wilfredo Leon to attack out of position 5 in the back court because that was a better offensive option than setting Lanza in the front court. That is all you need to know about Filippo Lanza. I have no idea why he's on this team.
Like, he can just be subbed in, pass well, and Womach will set middle because that's what Womach does the best.
Okay, that's fair. That is a use case for it.
It would make sense. The only thing Skra fans had in the past was like, hey, maybe we will get Bednosh. Bednosh is training with them nowadays, but that's not happening. They are not.
What is happening with Bednors? Does he have a full-time landing spot for this club season yet?
I think he goes to China, like it was rumored to happen in the past. Sadly, but
that's such a waste. That's such a waste. He's going to go there like somebody 500 miles away is going to catch COVID and the entire country is going to lock down.
Yeah, I don't know why, but well, that's his choice. I don't know. I feel like I'm moving to a good team in Poland or in Italy because he had offers from both. Would have been way smarter and better long term. So I don't know. Maybe China will not start the league and he will be available and someone will pick him up. So that's like the
that
only hope.
would honestly be a great fit for Scry. I think they kind of need a guy like that. So I mean, the main thing you need to know about this team is outstanding middles. If they can set them 25 balls a game combined, they're going to have a chance to beat some teams and going to let Bieniek rip 5 aces a match. Otherwise, I don't even know if I see them making the semifinals again. I really think Skraz on a downward trajectory.
Yeah, I think semifinals will be tough, like possible but tough for them, because this like Resovia, Warszawa can actually upset some teams and get into top 4. Olsztyn is looking cool, and teams that finished above them last year are still there. So
right,
it will be very difficult, and they just need to hope for maybe not miracle, but I don't know, something to happen, because there is only so much Bieniek and Kłos can do, because Kłos was the best, or had the most blocks in the league. Bieniek had the most aces in the league.
I mean,
And
they're
Bieniek,
middles. It's
yes.
the nature of the position. There's only so much you can do.
Bieniek had over, I think, more than 4.5 services per set, like throughout whole season. And at some point, he was close to 5 services per set. Like that's
like
insane.
service attempts per set.
Yes,
that's ridiculous. I mean, yeah, that means he's going on runs. That's amazing.
Yeah, and like 0.6 aces per set at the same time. So ridiculous numbers. And
ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, we talk about his hybrid all the time. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But there's only so much you can do when your best players are 2 middle blockers. I think that's a pretty good summary. Let's move on to the top 3. These are the teams that will be representing the PlusLiga in the Champions League this year, and starting off with a first-time representative of Warta Zawiercie. I'm excited about this team. 4th in the regular season last year, where they beat Skra in the 3rd place series, but then they lose Facundo Conte, and that sucks because him and Uros Kovacevic were the whole reason why this team was good last year. But they go out and get Bartosz Kvolek, who, like you said, was the only reason why Warszawa was any good at any point last year. So other than that, pretty similar roster-wise. They still got Tavares, the Portuguese setter. They do go get Santiago Dinani at libero. Yes. And then Krzysztof Reno, the old Zaksa third middle, will probably start for them this year. I've never been super high on David Konarski. I think he was okay last year, but probably not great. My question, very simply, Paweł, can this Zawiercie team do this again? Do you see them making the semifinals again?
Yes, I think if I were to choose a team that will win the league next year, I would choose them actually.
This year or next year?
Yes, this year.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like they've lost Conte. Yes, it's upsetting, but Kvolek is just as good, in my opinion. And he's more consistent when it comes to serving. He's more consistent as a player overall. He's better defender. He's amazing in back row. And he's somewhat more similar to Kovacevic in his spiking approach. Like, he can do some very weird plays, and he's a smart guy, high volleyball IQ. So he will make their passing better, so life for his setter will be way easier. And he should work well with Kovacevic. So Uros is an amazing player, nothing to add here. The biggest name in the league at the moment.
Ridiculous.
Sure. Yes, and then they signed Donani. Jurek was, I think, second worst passing libero in the league last year. Only behind second or third. It was him, Gruszczyński, who is their second libero, and Pichocki. They were the worst passing liberos in the league. And they signed Donani, so that's huge upgrade, absolutely insane. So they improved their middle a little bit because Niemiec was basically not blocking. His spiking numbers were top of the league almost. His service was average, decent float, but nothing special. However, his spiking was great. Although, to be fair, his best spiking games were when Uros was setting for whatever reason.
Some part of me hopes we see that again this year. That was
Yeah,
just
it was
so
fun to watch.
funny, really fun to watch.
Yes, so I feel like they've upgraded their team quite a bit, so their passing should be way, way better than it was, because Jurek was not great, Uroš is not amazing passer, and Conte it was not consistent when it comes to passing, especially. Now they bring Kvolek, who is great in back row, and Danani, who is amazing libero, so their passing will get way better. Tavares will have more to work with, and they still have offensive power because Kvolek is comparable to Conte and Kovacevic is Uroš. So a lot will depend, of course, on Konarski. And Konarski had like very average season, but then you look at playoffs, and boy oh boy, against Skra, Konarski was outstanding. Like looking at just playoffs, yes,
Konarski's a gamer.
I would say that looking at, like, if I had to choose the best team of playoffs last year, Konarski would be my starting opposite. Looking just at playoffs,
wow,
he was absolutely fantastic against Skra when Conte was bad and Uroš was injured, and they relied on Konarski, and Konarski got them this third place. He was the difference maker there. So if he can be just as good in playoffs, then yeah, I can see them winning the title, actually.
That is quite the claim. I mean, it's not crazy to pick a team that's not Zaksa for the title. I mean, we'll talk about Zaksa in a second. It's one of the things that I think is really compelling about this PlusLiga season is I don't really think there is a clear favorite team to win. It's certainly there's not like a Perugia caliber team in Italy or like a Zaksa caliber team from last year. And so that kind of opens the door for a team like Zawiercie to come out and win a title. That would be ridiculous. I am curious to see how competitive they are in Champions League, having never done that before. I would say this Champions League season's a little bit watered down with the absence of the Russian teams. So Zawiercie's got a chance to do decently well, and it seems like they've got a really good culture and a good fan base that will show up to their home games really well.
Yes, yeah, they are definitely like one of the. This team is very well run as well. Like looking at top four, they are the only team not sponsored by like government-owned company. The other one in top spots is Resovia. So that's one thing. They have amazing fans, and because it's a small city, they don't have any other team in like at the top level. So their fans are really attached to this club, and they've joined PlusLiga like less than 10 years ago. So they are still kind of fresh. And all of that together makes this team very attractive for fans. So they have great atmosphere, and so all of that together makes sense that they are they are getting better and better each season.
And they have Michał Winiarski coaching, and I love that pickup. So yeah, maybe you're convincing me that this Zawiercie team has a chance to win a title. I'm not as high on Konarski, at least across a long season and a long sample size.
But yeah, if he can prove himself as a big games player, then it will be fine. Like, he doesn't need to be amazing whole year.
True.
Especially when they have like Kovacevic and Kvolek on the left. So he doesn't need to be amazing all the time. He needs to be really good in playoffs, and it's possible. He proved that back in Zaksa. He proved that last year. So it's possible that he will make the same. He will do the same thing this year.
Okay. Watch out, boys and girls, for a dark horse championship.
I also like their bench. That's like another thing. Like,
okay,
quite decent. Like Walinski, who was really good last year in Cuprum and back in past, like very solid third option. David Dulski is young opposite, born in like 2002, I think, who is big, I think 2 meters 10 tall. Very promising opposite, who was one of the top scorers in second division. So he should get some chances this year as well. And their second middle is Szalacha, so third middle, sorry. Probably third middle. So another guy that was like played the same role Poremba had in national team this year. Like, not the best ones, but someone who got some opportunities before he got hit with some injuries. So like a solid team, very solid bench, good starters. And I really like this team. I think they can win the title this season.
Okay, and we'll get to see him in Champions League. Speaking of teams that at least thought they could win the title last year, this is Jastrzebski Wegiel. They won the title 2 years ago and had some obviously all-time great duels with Zaksa last year, but lost just about every one of them that was meaningful, including Polish Cup final. Or no, did Jastrzebski beat him in the Polish Cup final?
Yeah, no, they beat them in Super Cup.
Super Cup, that's right, the very beginning of the year.
Start of the season,
then Polish Cup and the finals of the Polish League and the semis of Champions League.
And both regular season games too.
And both regular season games. Yeah, Zaksa destroyed them every time last year. But Jastrzebski, or JW as I like to call them because I find their names especially hard to pronounce. Fun team to watch. I mean, they've got Benjamin Toniuti setting, who's incredible. They've got Tomasz Fornal. They've got Trevor Kleveno. They've got a very interesting thing at opposite. If you are a veteran of the Discord, you know my feelings on Jan Hadrava, but they also have Stefan Boyer. They've got Terva Porti, the Finnish setter, is a good backup. They've got Rafael Shimura as a backup outside who's really good. They've got Yuri Glader in the middle. They've got Kuba Popivchak at libero. Like, good roster. There's still the potential to win a title again. I just think that Zaksa dominated them so hard in that matchup last year. I don't know if I see them really getting over the hump without. I definitely don't see it with Hadrava at opposite, and I think Boyer will have to become the starting opposite that we've kind of wanted him to be the last couple of years if JW is going to win a title this year.
That or Fornal just putting the team on his back.
Or Fornal carries like Semeniuk level carries from last year.
Yes, which is possible because he showed glimpses of that in past. And but looking at the team, like it's basically the same team we saw last year.
Same team, really.
The only change is coaching, and that's an upgrade, like a big one, because I've never been a fan of Gardini, and then they got rid of him during playoffs, like we've talked about. But his replacement is Marcelo Mendes, and this is a really good coach. Someone who might help Boyer become this opposite he should become. At least he can help Fornal to get improved, to get better. So there is a lot of hope. I think they are main favorite, looking at odds, looking at fans, and like most people think Jastrzebski will win the league. For obvious reason, because Zaksa got weaker and they were clearly second best team last year. I think out of those 4 games they've lost, it was twice against Zaksa and 1 against Warszawa at the start of the season. And I don't even remember which one was the 4th, but basically they were beating everyone else. So they are definitely one of the coolest teams to watch in the league. And the only issue I see with their starting roster is I'm looking at Glader. And I know he's an amazing player, like one of my favorites to watch, but he is 38 or 39.
38, yeah, I'm looking at it now. He is up there in age for sure. By the way, if you know Glader is Ukrainian, he's counted as Polish in terms of PlusLiga nationality for years now.
So for many years. So
and then Wisniewski I think is pretty good, but he's also not that young. I think he's 33.
Yeah, but also like he can definitely play at this level for some time.
Yeah. Popivchak is outstanding. I think he should be the starting libero for the Polish national team going forward, honestly. And then my only thing is Hadrava. I do not like Hadrava. I do not trust him. I do not. I understand that you know what you're going to get out of Hadrava versus Boyer, who might be the streakiest, most up and down player in all of volleyball. But
we competition within the league with Atanasievich playing for Stal. That's a decent competition.
I would love to see. I think Jastrzebski should play against Skra. I hope that it goes to 5, and I want Atanasievich and Boyer to hit 60 balls for the match. We'll see how it goes.
It could go either way. Like it would be completely unpredictable.
Pure entertainment. I agree. I think this Jastrzebski team has a real chance to win it this year. I think. I mean, Toniuti left Zaksa after winning everything there was to win for a reason. And I think that it very well may work out for them this year. This team's really, really good and complete. I just think that they need that. They need a little bit more out of the opposite position. But I mean, Fornal and Kleveno is such a good outside hitter duo That and probably Kovacevic and Kvolek is my favorite outside hitter duo in the league.
Both duos are really, really good.
Yeah.
And Fornal is someone who can still get better. So that's where I would look at it. If I were Jastrzebski, like looking for where they can improve. So that's one thing. Maybe like his synergy with Taniutti wasn't perfect at all points. And Hadrava is someone like he has very high lows, but his highs aren't as high as someone else.
High floor, low ceiling. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
He's a very, very stable player, but I think that he's extremely easy to scout against. And if I were coaching a team, I think it would be easy to shut him down.
But which is why they were so good in the league, where they didn't need anything special from the opposite. But once they meet a team that goes really strong and they've needed more power, they were like lacking it. And that's when Boyer could be useful, but Boyer is completely unpredictable. So sometimes he was subbed
unpredictable.
Sometimes he got subbed in, and nope, not today. And Hadrava was back in. So,
and I don't hate that. I don't hate that idea. I would even honestly consider starting Boyer every match. And just to see what you're going to get out of him. If he's great, awesome. You're probably going to win. If he's terrible, put Hadrava in halfway through the first set and ride him the rest of the way. I don't hate that. We'll see what Mendes chooses to do with that position.
Yeah, I feel like they should start Boyer against like stronger teams and Hadrava against the rest, because
that would be a good idea.
Yeah, because it would be some kind of a rotation, and Hadrava can always get subbed in. It's someone who used to be a really good beach player. He gives something more in defense. He is solid technically. Meanwhile, Boyer is this like wild beast that just gets subbed in, and maybe he helps, maybe he doesn't.
They couldn't be more different in terms of two guys that play the same position. Could not possibly be more different. All right, so definitely keep your eyes on Jastrzebski as a title team. I think they could have a pretty good Champions League as well. I don't think anybody's beating Perugia anywhere in the entire world this year, but Jastrzebski could easily go to the semifinals again. I mean, they had that great series win over Lubeči Vidinova last year.
Finals, but we'll see.
It depends on the draw that they get. We will see.
That's for sure.
All right, last but not least, we got to spend some time talking about Zaksa, and it's been a long show, but it is very important that we talk about Zaksa Kedzierzyn-Kozle, the defending champions, the two-time defending Champions League winners. This team has been on an absolute tear the last year and a half. Other than losing the league to Jastrzebski 2 years ago, they were just untouchable for basically 2 straight years. And that first Champions League they won was an all-time great story. Last year they did it again. They proved it was legit. But then, unfortunately, they lose Kamil Semeniuk to Perugia, and they don't replace him.
Yeah.
I do not understand that. I do not understand having to scrape the bottom of the barrel and bring in Denis Karyagin, who I've always thought of as an opposite, to be your second outside hitter. Other than that, and other than we're waiting for Norbert Huber to be healthy again, it's the exact same team as last year. You still got Marcin Janusz, Alexander Śliwka, Łukasz Kaczmarek, David Smith, Eric Shoji. The third middle for the meantime will be Pashitsky, the Ukrainian-Russian guy, who's good. Yeah. He's really good. And like we talked about at the beginning of the show, they're not going to have a foreigner problem with that, because between Pashitsky, Smith, and Shoji, only 2 of them will ever be on the court at once, so they're not going to have a problem with there. I am just so confused of all the options that there were. Thomas Jeschke, Ole Plotnitsky, Aaron Russell, even more recently, like Matt Anderson is kind of available. There are so many options that this Zaksa team could have had an outside hitter. They knew that Kamil Semeniuk was leaving months and months and months ago. Why did they end up with Denis Karyagin? Pavel, do you know something about this that I don't? Answer this question for me.
This weird story, what happened, because it's not we have to mostly guess what happened. And let's not forget the biggest name, Gareth Mwagatutia, who was also on Zaksa's shortlist.
God, could you imagine?
At least he's passing well, so that's something that cannot be said about Karyagin. So. But looks like Zaksa had to change chairman because Sebastian Świderski, who was their chairman for years now, got elected as chairman of Polish Federation. So he had to leave. He couldn't, of course, for obvious reasons, be chairman of Zaksa and Polish Federation. And it looks like he had to quit around January. So Zaksa at first had to deal with Semeniuk leaving in around the same time, but he was supposed to leave to Belgorod together with coach Kretu and possibly
I remember that
as well. Then, of course, Russia did what Russia did. So, and Semeniuk immediately backed out of that contract. The same with Kretu and Kaczmarek. So, talks were over, but they didn't know for sure that he will leave, but they had to suspect that. And he, of course, went back to talks with Perugia, and he signed a contract with them. So what happened with Zaksa? Well, it looks like they were hoping to get someone really good, but they didn't have money for that. They approached Lucarelli, Jeschke, Anderson, all the players we mentioned before, but they couldn't reach a deal with any of, agree any deal with any of them. And there were rumors that they agreed to sign someone from USA or something. They were suggesting that maybe Jeschke was about to join. But it looks like they were so convinced that they are getting one of them that they didn't make enough backup plans. And then Jeschke chose Asia, and Anderson chose to move to Zenit St. Petersburg. Now we know for sure. So it looks like, hey, we are left with no one, and they were just decided to go cheap way. Maybe, but that's they didn't know about it before, so maybe that has to be more recent. They were hit with their budget. Of course, their company will definitely get hit by what happens in Ukraine. So because it's Grupa Azoty, so they are supposed to work with this. All issues will definitely impact them. So maybe they've decided to limit their financial support for Zaksa. But I'm not sure if that's the case. And it looks like they had money before. So they decided to just not back out of any good deals and just get Karyagin, who is, let's be honest, not someone of quality even close to Semeniuk.
Not even close. And I mean, Kamil Semeniuk has an argument for top 5 outside hitter in the world at this point. And I mean, we saw what he did in the Champions League final, well-deserved MVP. He was 71% efficiency. It was one of the great matches I've ever seen. And even though this team is the same as that is such a massive loss that the circumstances around not being able to replace him are going to make such a huge impact on where the Zaksa team can go. There is absolutely no way they can contend in Champions League again. And I would be surprised if they could make the finals of the PlusLiga again, but I would be surprised if they won. I really would be. And I think it's that much of a difference without Kamil Semeniuk. And I mean, they've got Zielinski is their third outside. He's okay. He's okay. I mean, I saw him come in a couple times last year. Nothing special, older guy, more of a passing guy. I don't understand the path towards winning a title for the Zaksa team with this particular lineup. Yeah, I just don't see it.
Close to impossible. And as much as Zaksa pulled off some miracles in past, making a good player, good outside out of Karyagin in less than a year is probably impossible. I know that Semeniuk was probably the most compared value of contract to players' quality, then he was probably the best contract in whole Europe last year because he wasn't on a massive deal and he was absolutely insanely good.
Unbelievable.
So getting someone at his level for their for a team with their budget was basically impossible. So that's not an issue. The issue is that they didn't sign anyone who is even close in quality. Like,
or who even plays the position. I mean, Denis Karyagin was the backup opposite at Monza last year. He played opposite on the Bulgarian national team this summer. Like,
I think he used to play as an outside in youth teams, so it's not like he had no experience. But that's like
let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you switch someone from outside to opposite, there's a reason for that. You don't then switch them back. There's a reason.
Unless it's Matt Anderson or something like
Unless it's Matt Anderson. That is a huge exception. The team needed him to play opposite. If you move an outside to opposite at like the youth level, it's because the kid can't pass the ball.
Usually that's the case.
There's no way you can make a PlusLiga caliber outside hitter out of Denis Karyagin in less than a year. There's no way.
Yeah, definitely. There is no way. And it's like they will have to rely on Żaliński. And Żaliński is like decent passer, and unless someone like he somehow reaches the same level he showed back in, I think, 2015, like he had the year of his life. He played in Olympic qualifier for national team. He was called up, and that's like the highest level he has ever played at. So if he can get to that level, then that's probably the only way I can see Zaksa has winning the title, but it's heavily unlikely. He's no longer like in his 20s. He's almost mid-30s. So
he's 1988. So 34.
Yeah, he will be 35 in playoffs. So like getting at this age, like suddenly playing at the level he played for like a few months. It was 7 years ago. Like it's heavily unlikely. He's not like Kaczynski, like a player who can be at insane level at 38.
Another player who they should have gone out and tried to get. Like go get
Szerszeń.
Go get Matej Kaczynski. Go get Nicolas Szerszeń. Like, oh man. Get at least get somebody close, like even in the same like
someone who is similar in style, like Karyagin cannot pass. Get someone like Szerszeń who can pass, or get Lipinski, who is also proven at league level and good offensively. Like there were players available who could replace Semeniuk. Like I guess, the perfect replacement would have been DeFalco. I guess he would have some other American players here.
I think Thomas Jeschke would have been Thomas Jeschke or Aaron Russell would have been my personal favorite fit. Either of those guys would have been awesome.
Yeah, but they need to be healthy to play. Like that's their issue. That's the issue with them. But they would have been great signings. So like we've talked about and found some players who could join Zaksa. Maybe some of them were too expensive. Like I can see how Russell moves to Japan, so he could have been too expensive for Zaksa. Maybe Jeschke wanted too much, okay, but I can see a reason why they couldn't get Szerszeń, for example, who is definitely better than Karyagin, definitely better suited for Zaksa, and he's someone who definitely has still something else to show, something more than we have seen from him so far. And Zaksa is really, really good at like making the best out of their players. Like Livka, when he joined, wasn't amazing. He was really good, but nothing more than that. So someone like Szerszeń would fit their philosophy way more. And at first I had some of my doubts whether like why would they get Szerszeń? They can get someone better. Well, yes, it looks like they should have just gone for someone.
Well, we can talk all we want about the roster that they could have had, but the fact of the matter is the roster that they have has one gigantic gaping weakness, and that's that second outside hitter. And I mean, Kaczmarek is awesome. Both middles are awesome, especially when Huber comes back. Shoji is awesome. Janusz was the MVP of the league last year. Like, and then they new coach worth pointing out, Tomas Somelvuo, coming out from Russia finally. Still, as great of things as Zaksa accomplished the last 2 years, those two Champions Leagues were all-time great accomplishments. It's not going to happen again this year. It's just
I think Kaczmarek can step up and play better. Like in preseason friendlies, he has been amazing. Livka can play a bigger role, especially in offense this season. So they
just set a lot more pipes. Set Livka a lot more balls front.
Some more set middles even more than they did in past. So they can partially cover for that, but they cannot completely hide the fact that they've lost Semen. You can put Karyagin or Żaliński has to replace him. That's not the same unless Huber can come back from injury and take his favorite nickname for himself, showed that there is more than just nickname Norbert Landy Huber and play at Simon's level. Maybe that's the way for them to win something.
I love the Norbert Landy nickname so much. Do you know? Does Huber know that we call him that? We need to figure.
No idea. I have no idea.
We need to figure out a way to contact him and let him know that we him and David Smith, Smith both. We refer to them as we attach the Landy to their names.
Yeah, I think you can just tweet him and he might actually see that. So,
all right, we'll see what we can do. Well, Paweł, I think we did it. We went through every team. I really like this PlusLiga season. I think it's really balanced. There's no clear favorite. There's a lot of talent. There's some good Champions League representation. There's a ton of teams, a ton of matches. Where would you recommend, especially if you're not in Poland, what are the best ways to follow the PlusLiga and watch the games? This is something that I've struggled with before.
The most basic things to follow PlusLiga and check the results, look at basic stats is using PlusLiga website. So basically plusliga.pl. That's the easiest way to see what's going on. I have no idea if there is any website producing regular news in English for PlusLiga, because there is a lot of content in Polish on basically any sports website, on PlusLiga websites too. And when it comes to watching PlusLiga, sadly, it's quite difficult without VPN or some kind of not exactly legal streaming. So the only way to watch it through the internet fully legally is Polsat Box Go. So that's what IPLA used to be. It used to be called IPLA. That it either requires VPN or is stupidly expensive if you just want to watch PlusLiga. There are usually some highlights on Polsat Sports website too. But like I said, using translator is quite dangerous, because I think Josh Duaniga was joking how he was trying to translate some of articles about Slepsk, and he couldn't figure out why they were never mentioning Szerszeń, because Szerszeń is not. Wait, let me check for sure. But Szerszeń is basically Hornet, so he was all the time saying, "Why are they talking about Hornets, not about Nicholas?" And that's why you can see
that's pretty funny.
Weird stuff like that. So that's why.
We've got a couple people in the chat saying the guy says in the US there's an app called Polbox. You pay a monthly subscription fee and get all the Polish channels, including Polsat.
Polsat Box Go, exactly.
Okay. So there are some options out there. Definitely join the Volleyball Source Discord. I mean, generally, you're going to want to do that. But we'll be talking a lot about the PlusLiga. I mean, we've got it used to be once upon a time Adanos was the only Polish guy in the Discord. Now we've got several, which is great. And they're all chirping in the Polish channel all the time about the national team and about PlusLiga. So we'll be in there really active, and we'll be able to help with streams as we can for whatever.
We will do our best to try to find some way to watch PlusLiga fully legally for a reasonable price, hopefully.
Yep. So join the Discord for that. There's going to be a lot going on with the PlusLiga this year, and we'll cover it on the 9x9 throughout the club season as well. We're going to get to see 3 Polish teams play Champions League, and then probably Skrabel Chatów playing CV Cup again. Yeah. So Polish volleyball will be everywhere, as it always is. So join the Discord for a lot more. We'll be following along with it on Volleyball Source and all the various places. And I think that's about it. Paweł, thank you very much, my friend. A very long show, but I needed your expertise, especially on some of the lower ranked teams, to kind of tell us what to expect. So this has been a great resource for everyone around the world that wants to follow the league. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me here too.
Dziękuję, right? Is that thank you?
Yes, dziękuję. Yes.
Dziękuję. Thank you, Paweł. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We will see you next time. Sunday night on Volleyball Source, next show about Women's World Championship. And then a week from today, next Wednesday, I think it's October 5th-ish, whatever that day is. a very special show previewing this year's Champions League with a player who may or may not be participating in this year's Champions League. So you're going to want to watch that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.